I found it really interesting and actually quite surprising, speaking to reward and benefit directors recently, how many of them, without prompting from me, have talked about master trusts and talked about investments. That is not something we've seen in the reward space that much before. It's been quite common in pensions for a while, as you know. And that's one of the reasons that we partnered as REBA with Corporate Advisor, coming out with this guide, looking at master trust investments and how they compare across the market. And I think our members would be really interested to understand from a Nest point of view how they look at the different master trusts on offer, because everyone is different, and how they assess those performance differentials and what impact that might have on the outcomes for their particular members.
Yeah, first of all, I think it doesn't really surprise me that master trusts have become as popular as they have, because I think from an employer's point of view, the master trust model gives them the advantages of a trust-based pension arrangement with all of the fiduciary duty and the responsibility to look after the interests of members, but without the cost and hassle of running their own pension scheme. So you know, I can see why employers have started to move towards master trusts, but not all master trusts are the same. And it's really important when the employer's thinking about the pension arrangements that they want to put in place for their staff, that they really think hard about that decision. It's a big responsibility. I think, as you say in this report yourself, the decision that the employer makes when they're choosing a pension arrangement for their staff is going to have a major impact on the final pension pot that employee ends up with. So it's a decision to make carefully, and it's a decision to make with a great sense of responsibility. It helps employers in a structured way think about some of the other things that are also really important. What's the quality of the governance in the master trust like? Are the assets and data being protected? Is the security within the trust strong enough? What are the arrangements for communicating with members? And, you know, I think we'll come on in a moment to how important that's becoming. Are the investment arrangements in that master trust right for my workforce? Thinking hard about those investment arrangements and that investment strategy, and thinking about whether it works for their workforce.
Because it's not just the returns that you're looking at, it's also the risk and whether it aligns to your workforce.
Yeah. I mean, for us, the risk-adjusted return is so important, because as we survey our members, one of the things that comes across loud and strong is that what our members want is steady growth. They're not looking to take a huge amount of risk. Our members feel very worried about the idea of taking a huge amount of risk. So we manage our assets very carefully to try and get that right balance of risk and return. So for us, the risk-adjusted return metric is the one that we're really interested in. So I think it's very, very important for the employer just to look at those things, think hard about them, and think, does that investment arrangement and do all the other benefits of this pension, do they work for my workforce? And this guide helps them to do that.
That's brilliant. And then linked to that aligning of your investment strategy to your workforce, but also to your employer brand. As I mentioned earlier, the rise of the interest in the environment and ESG has been quite fascinating, because in the world of pensions, trustees and pensions managers and so on have been talking about this for quite some time. But I'm now finding that the employers that are really at the vanguard, the reward directors and benefit managers, who you wouldn't expect to be talking about pension investments, are suddenly saying this is crucial. And what's happening is that their workforces are being influenced by big global social movements, so Me Too, 38 Degrees, Extinction Rebellion, and so on and so on and so on. And they are saying, what are you as an employer doing to be more green, environmental, diverse, equality and so on? And then how does that play forward into the benefits package, the reward package and pensions? And they even are getting questions on the pensions coming from the staff, which we wouldn't have seen a few years ago. It's been really interesting.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
But I think quite a few of our members haven't quite got there yet. So things like ESG are new terms. So I'd be quite interested to get your view of what Nest are doing, but perhaps explaining what is ESG, what are the trends that are happening when it comes to investment that are matching these new shifts in people's attitudes to investment.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It really matters to people, and increasingly so, that the money that they have in their pension funds is invested responsibly. We did a survey recently of our members, and we found that 3/4 of them said that the fact that their money was managed responsibly really mattered to them. For half of them, it mattered a lot. It was a really, really important factor. And we found that across the board. It wasn't just younger people. We predicted that younger people would care about these things, but actually we found that to be the case across the board. And I think you're absolutely right, Debbie. This stuff is coming up the agenda. For us at Nest, it's part of our DNA. From the very beginning, we have been very, very interested in making sure that we invest responsibly, by which I mean we are interested in investing in companies that look after their workforce and think about the environmental impact and work in a socially responsible way. Why do we do that? Well, frankly, we do that because we think that gives better financial outcomes for our members. Mm-hmm. We think that as a long-term investor, looking for long-term sustainable returns, it just makes sense to invest in companies that treat their workforce well, that think about the environmental impact of what they do, and actually are socially responsible in the way they behave. That just makes sense to us. So we've done things like, we've introduced a climate aware fund. We did that a couple of years ago now. That's been very successful. We're about to eradicate tobacco from our portfolio. But also as a shareholder, we act and look in small ways. We exercise our voting rights to try and make sure that we nudge the companies that we invest in to act in a more responsible way. And one of the things that we're really interested in trying now is to see whether this groundswell, really, of interest from our members can be a way that we can engage them in their pension saving.
Broadly speaking, when I speak to REBA members, so reward and benefit directors, they fully understand the importance of their staff saving for retirement, of good member outcomes, having good contributions. But the challenge they often face is getting the message through to their employees. There's just so much going on in the workplace and in people's lives. The employer themselves also has, a cap on how much they can spend in terms of employer contributions and even communications as best they try. So there does feel like, this is almost a 50-50 responsibility. The employees do need to take responsibility themselves for their own savings. Mm-hmm. Now, I know at Nest you are working where you're also helping directly with employees to save more. Mm-hmm. And I'd be interested to hear of some of the things that you're doing to engage members of Nest more in their pensions. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really important issue. The approach that we're taking is to test and learn. So we're trying different things out to see what works and to understand that before we move forward. And largely that's the approach we tend to take to the way we develop our product. I think now is the time to start thinking about this. Auto-enrollment's been massively successful, and it's been largely based on inertia. So it's kind of, in some ways, the opposite of engagement. We've been saying to people, you do nothing and you're in a pension. The next stage is to get people to engage with their pensions. And at Nest, we've got about 20% of people who've activated their online accounts. And if you use that as a proxy for engagement, that's quite interesting. 20% is not bad, especially in a pension fund where almost everybody's been auto-enrolled, but we could do so much better. There's so much more scope there. Important for the employer too. If you're going to be contributing to your employee's pension, it's important they value it. It's important they recognise it as a recruitment and retention tool. It's important that it's appreciated, especially if you're contributing more than the automatic enrolment minimum. So I totally understand, but it's why it would be important to employers. It's important to us too, because we believe in the end it's going to drive really good outcomes for members. People need, as they start to see their pension pots grow, they need to be able to make the right decisions about them. So am I saving the right amount? Should I be saving more? How am I going to make the right decisions as I move towards retirement? So important thing to do. It's really hard because it's hard to get people to focus on retirement. It seems such a long way off for most people. And it's really hard because you are competing, as you said, with so much other stuff. Shlomo Ben-Artzi calls it the information fire hose. You're sprayed with information through all sorts of media and you're competing for attention. What we're doing is we're trialing different things, looking at those moments of truth, looking at different media to see what works and really experimenting to see what in practical terms works for people. And actually, I don't think this is going to be a one-size-fits-all answer. It's going to be different for different people, different times, different media. And pension funds are going to need to be able to respond to that. And we need to have a much more personalised offer for people. It's no good just spraying out this one-size-fits-all information. One of the things that we found that seems to work really well is a personalised video. It's an unusual medium at the moment, so people will look at it and it feels very personal. So we've been sending people personalised videos about their pension fund just to see what reaction we get. And we've been delighted by how many people have been, opening them up and looking at them. So we see some real potential here, but it is a very difficult thing to do. Important to do for the individual, and as you say, really important for the employer, because the employer needs to get value out of the pension contribution they're making.
And I think linked to that, we are definitely also seeing employers looking more broadly than the pension. They want to get the value, but you can't look at the pension in isolation.
Yes.
So the rise of financial well-being within the last, 3-4 years perhaps even, where employers are going, staff aren't wanting to save more because into the pension because of all these other pressures. So that's been quite fascinating to see how that's developing. And people, we've seen new products coming to the market, workplace loans, we're starting to see salary streaming, you've had corporate ISAs coming along. So I was very interested in this broader well-being piece, how Nest is piloting something quite interesting and unusual, and I thought it might be useful if you could give our members an inside track on what you're piloting.
Yes, our sidecar savings vehicle. So this is an idea that we have been developing with Harvard University. It's something that has proved to be quite successful in the United States, and we're having a look to see whether it works here. And the idea is that alongside your pension saving, you also build up an emergency cash fund. There's lots of research that suggests that even with £1,000 in an emergency cash fund, you can make a huge difference to someone's short-term financial well-being, much less likely to get into problem debt if they've just got a little bit of resilience for that time when the washing machine breaks down or something happens that you need recourse to money for. That's good for the employer too. So if you have a member of staff who has financial resilience, they're much less likely to be stressed, they're much more focused in the workplace. So there are lots of benefits actually to having your employees not distracted by worrying about money or feeling stressed and needing to take time off work because of money worries. So we think there are workplace benefits too. There are benefits also in terms of pension saving. What's the biggest reason why somebody stops saving in a pension? It's because they come up with some short-term financial problem that they need to use that income stream for. It is, I think, the natural next step for auto-enrolment to look at creating short-term financial resilience alongside the long-term financial resilience we're creating through pension saving.
So thank you, Helen, for being our CEO on the sofa today as part of the REBA series and finding out how you're responding to some of the market shifts, the trends that are coming down the line, the demands from workforces as well, and trying to deliver what they're actually wanting. So been very interesting to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it very much.